Top 3 Scariest Night Driving Stories You Won't Believe. Story 1. The Shadow on the Road. It was late, and Mark had been driving for hours along a dark, winding highway, heading back home after a business trip. The road was desolate, bordered by thick woods that seemed to swallow up the night. His headlights barely pierced the darkness, and the only sound was the hum of his car and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. He was tired, but he needed to make it back before morning. As he rounded a sharp bend in the road, something strange caught his eye, just off to the side, standing by the trees. It was a figure, tall and thin, wearing what appeared to be an old-fashioned suit. The figure stood motionless, staring into the headlights of his car. Mark's heart skipped a beat. He slowed down, unsure if it was just a trick of his tired eyes. But as he passed by, he caught a glimpse of the figure's face. It was pale, with hollow black eyes and a smile that stretched too wide, like it was forced. Mark didn't stop to think. He pressed the gas pedal harder, driving faster through the night. But no matter how fast he went, the figure seemed to follow. Every time he glanced in his rearview mirror, he saw the shadow in the distance, growing closer. Panic set in as he sped down the road, but the shadow was always just behind him, never too far, but never quite catching up. When he finally reached the exit to his town, he slammed the brakes, turning sharply into the street that led home. As he looked into his rearview mirror once more, there was nothing behind him. Just the empty, silent road. But when Mark arrived home and stepped out of his car, he found the same tall figure standing at the edge of his driveway. The smile was gone, but the hollow eyes remained. The figure whispered, "You can't outrun me." Mark locked the door that night, but he could still feel the figure watching him through the window. No one has seen it again, but Mark will never drive that road again. Story 2. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Lena had been driving home from a late-night shift, exhausted but eager to get to bed. The highway was long and empty, with only the occasional streetlight illuminating the road. Her car's headlights pierced the darkness ahead, revealing nothing but the occasional sign and trees on either side. Out of nowhere, she spotted something strange, a figure standing on the side of the road. A woman, drenched in rain, holding out her thumb as if asking for a ride. Lena slowed down, unsure if she should stop. It was a desolate stretch of highway, and the last thing she wanted was to pick up a stranger in the middle of nowhere. But the woman looked desperate, her clothes soaked through. Reluctantly, Lena pulled over and rolled down her window. "Do you need a ride?" she asked. The woman nodded, her voice shaking. "Please, I need to get home. It's not far." Lena hesitated, but something in the woman's eyes convinced her. She unlocked the door, and the woman got into the car without saying another word. As they drove in silence, Lena couldn't help but notice how cold the woman was, her breath visible in the air despite the heat in the car. After a few minutes, Lena tried to make conversation. "So, where are you headed?" The woman didn't answer. Instead, she pointed straight ahead and said softly, "Take the next exit. My house is just there." Lena nodded, though the strange behavior was making her uneasy. She turned off the highway, heading down a narrow, dimly lit road. But as she took the exit, she glanced in the rearview mirror, and the woman was gone. The seat next to her was empty. Shocked, Lena slammed on the brakes and pulled over, but there was no sign of the woman anywhere. No wet footprints on the road, no car, nothing. She got out of the car, her heart racing, and looked around. It was as though the woman had vanished into thin air. The next day, Lena told her co-workers about the incident, and one of them looked pale when she heard the story. "That sounds like the hitchhiker who died on that stretch of road years ago," she said. "She was killed by a car accident, and her ghost is said to appear to travelers looking for help." Lena never drove that stretch of highway again. Story 3. The Driver in the Rearview Mirror. It was a quiet Sunday night, and Chris was on his way home from a late dinner with friends. The highway was empty, and the road stretched out in front of him like a dark tunnel. He liked driving at night, there was something peaceful about it. But that night, something felt different. As he drove, he began to notice a set of headlights in his rearview mirror. The car seemed to be tailing him, staying just a little too close for comfort. At first, he thought it was just another car, but after a few miles, he realized the car had been there the entire time. No matter how fast or slow he went, it stayed right behind him. Chris tried to shake off the unease, assuming it was just another driver going in the same direction. But as he took a sharp curve, he glanced in his rearview mirror again, and the car wasn't there anymore. It had disappeared. Confused, he slowed down, scanning the road behind him. But there was nothing. He sped up, trying to shake off the creeping feeling that something wasn't right. He kept glancing at his mirror, half expecting to see the car again. But then, when he looked once more, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The car was there again. But this time it was right behind him, too close. Almost too close. Chris panicked, pressing down on the accelerator, but the car stayed with him, matching his every move. The faster he drove, the faster it followed. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the car pulled up beside him and Chris could see the driver, a figure with no face, just an empty void where eyes should have been. The driver's hands were gripping the wheel, but their body was hunched forward, almost as if the driver was staring directly at him. The figure's face twisted into a grotesque, gaping grin, and Chris's stomach dropped. He slammed the brakes, swerving to the side of the road in a desperate attempt to escape. When he looked up again, the car was gone. The road was empty. But the unsettling feeling stayed with him for weeks. Every time he drove at night, he kept checking his rearview mirror, half expecting to see the faceless driver tailing him, watching him, waiting for the right moment to show up again.